You could be a bottom who likes to eat.
Right.
What's good people? I'm OBO, and in case you didn't know, I'm the G in LGBTQ, and you're watching It's Just Not Adding Up. So get in here and act like you got some sense. We're about to create some space.
How are we starting this?
The only way to start it
is with what? Top, bottom, verse?
Why not?
Okay, well, top, bottom, verse. So let's talk about sexual positions. I've said this before in previous videos. I don't identify with sexual positions only because I think they're limiting. I think most things are on a spectrum. Mm-hmm. Even our sexual orientation, I think, is on a spectrum, right? But for me, we'll talk about getting into sexual positions and how they're perpetuated and all the things. Right. So you want me to start? You want to
go? No, you should start.
This is my show.
Yeah.
So I honestly, if I'm being really, really candid, feel like I was groomed to be a top. And I think I was groomed to be a top because of my physicality. You know what I mean? When I first was introduced to sex with a guy, I often talk about to my friends in my spaces that a lot of our encounters are kind of predicated upon how the opposite person who knew more than you handled you, right? Whether they wanted to top you, whether they wanted to bottom for you, how they wanted you to behave.
Wow.
I remember my masculinity being policed in a very extreme way early on and me being intimate with gay guys. Right. You know what I'm saying? Before any conversations about sexual health, it was a lot of conversations about who you need to be.
Right.
You're above 6 feet, you're a bigger guy, you're a top.
And so, did this happen when you were a teenager, early, like?
My first encounter with a guy sexually was when I was 19. And then from then on, to be honest. And I was in my, later 20s when I finally gave my permission to explore even outside of just, strict top stuff, right? Get out of my business. But, the things, you know what I'm saying? And I think it was just such a interesting perspective because I will say, again, sexual health wasn't a main proponent of the conversation I was trying to, right? It wasn't about condoms. Not saying I wasn't using them, but it wasn't a big deal. We weren't talking about HIV prevention. We weren't talking about all these other things that were really necessary in the community as much as we were talking about how you need to perform during sex.
All right, so this is a good opportunity to talk about Mister. Mister is a service that provides you with PrEP. PrEP is a once-a-day pill that is 99% effective in the prevention of HIV. But here's why you and Mister need to become friends. Mister will send the PrEP to your door in all 50 states, including Puerto Rico, for free. You can do all your STI testing and talk to licensed physicians online from the comfort of your own home. I don't know what else you need to know besides the link is in my description. Let's get back to the video.
So you experience people kind of projecting these ideas of what they wanted your role to be with them.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
What was your experience?
My experience was more so, I feel like I was born gay, right? I feel like I had this innate kind of sensibility and behavior to myself that was, I later learned is called gay, right? But as it pertains to roles, I feel as though I've always had a natural inclination towards being a certain position over the other.
Yeah.
I believe language is important. I've said this before, where we should know what we like in terms of language, and we should be able to identify what these roles and key markers are. That way we can navigate each other.
Do you think top, bottom, verse encapsulates those things in a really effective way?
No, I think we are so much more, expansive beyond these terms, but I do think it gives us a guide to, understanding each other. We don't have generations that has matriculated information to us. Honestly, we're in the information age and we're learning everything ourselves. We don't have, people may be deceased or they're no longer with us. They haven't passed down a knowledge of what they were calling each other in the 1950s or the 1900s or the 1850s. I'm sure they probably didn't have roles, but I think they probably more so had whatever type of natural rhythm they fell into with each other.
So have you ever felt the push or the urge to deviate from what you were naturally inclined to do sexually?
Absolutely. I think this culture, gay culture, everyone they want you to be whatever they want you to be. But me, I'm a very confident, I kind of, stick my ground. So I can't be easily persuaded. I think when I was younger, those things would affect me. You should be this, or you should be a top, or you should be verse, or you should be this. But I've always kind of known what I wanted.
So when you were younger, not saying we're that far apart, but when you were younger and being in community, did you have experiences where there was bottom shaming? Was there top shaming in any way? Like, what did positions look like?
Yeah, so I mean, so to be candid, to be frank, I've always attracted tops, right? And so I think with friend groups, sometimes they could just make fun of whatever you're interested in. And so they could be like, girl, he ain't no top, or girl, I saw him doing this. And so I think that's a way of kind of top shaming, because what they're truly saying is that tops don't exist. And I don't believe that. I believe that tops exist, bottoms exist, verse top exists, verse bottoms. All the kind of like hues and different colors of sexuality exist. Yeah. But I think we try to make them be, certain things. And sometimes people think it should be more lucid than it is. And that's not the case for everybody.
It's interesting you said it, because before now, I've always heard conversations around people who are trying to get tops to explore. But I haven't in my community of people heard people try to get bottoms to explore out of that.
Definitely. Yeah. It happens just as equally. I mean, people can say, well, Elle, you should be using this because you got this or whatever. And I'm like, that's not what I like. And so I came up with like this like analogy of like comparing sexuality or sexual preferences like eggs. Like, how do you like your eggs? Like, it's a preference how you like your...
Oh,
right. No.
I like mine scrambled with no cheese.
But you said, what's your preference of eggs?
Scrambled with no cheese.
Right. So that's your preference, right? So if I give you eggs over easy, if I give you hard-boiled eggs, that's not your thing.
Right.
Right? Why am I trying to make that your thing? Some people like it all, but some people like what they like. And so that's what I think sexual orientation is like. It's like, no, I like my eggs softly scrambled. And that's just what I like.
Softly scrambled, enjoy it.
People see gayness as like being very fluid, right? They don't see it being very stoic or stagnant in places. And that works against us, people who are a bit more fixed in what they like. Yeah. Because they think like, to be gay is to be top and bottom, and you guys should be exploring that. And even in relationships, I've experienced people saying that, no, we should be able, or we shouldn't judge each other for wanting to do that, which I don't knock, and that's for you. But that's not everybody's energy and what they want to bring to their sexual dynamics. Like, some people like what they like and they choose to do whatever they like well, or however they want to do it.
But I think we're combating heteronormativity, right? We're combating this idea that was what heterosexual people have done this whole time. And so we're doing something different.
And my thing is, why are we combating it? Rather than just looking at it and saying, that's what that is, and this is what we are, and this is what we do. And I think we do interplay with those type of dynamics. Like, I know relationships or gay people that like heteronormative kind of standards in their relationships. And I see that to be more common than not, where they're just like, okay, the bottoms cook. The bottoms cook, the tops, they garner like, money, they bring in the bacon or whatever. That's not, that's not necessarily, it's true for certain people, but everybody doesn't subscribe to those roles.
And I think it has to be okay all around. It can't just be like, you're good if you're verse, you're childish if you're strict on any other level. And it has to be, everybody has to, because again, I'm never going to tell anybody what to do sexually. I think you should do whatever you want to do. If that's 10 people, if it's one person, if it's bottoming, topping, versing, flipping, whatever you want to do, you should do that. But I think that same luxury should be given all around the board.
No, I think so too. And I think it's very important for a person to explore all of their interests before they get in something.
So what does sexual compatibility look like for you, though?
Sexual compatibility to me looks like a complementary opposite. Someone that is on the opposite end of you, but they complement you in that way. So let's say if I'm a bottom, right? That means that I'm attracting a top. That means we would never kind of have this like, turbulence between us. We get each other, right? Opposed to me being with like a versatile top, or me being with a versatile bottom. Like, there are going to be needs that you have that I won't be able to fulfill or even want to fulfill. And you should be with someone who is going to cater to that. So I think it's about just understanding where you sit on that for yourself before you try to articulate it to like the masses. I think it should be between yourself and the other person.
I think sexual compatibility has to go past even just positions too, right? Like, I think we have to talk about sexual frequency. How often do you want to have sex? Because sometimes you get people and they want to have sex twice a week, and you're like,
so does frequency change your role?
No, I mean, it depends on the person.
Because I've heard this before. I heard people saying, well, okay, I can be a bottom if I only need to bottom like on Valentine's Day and your birthday. Right?
Right.
So to me, that's a person kind of conforming for that other person.
And I think that's okay if you can do that, but communicate that, right? It needs to be like, hey, even if we lean more on the opposite end of the spectrum, I still want to bottom and or top this amount of times. Just making that clear, because I think, again, it's hard to really say the full narrative by simply saying I'm a top bottom verse, or oral top oral bottom, or verse top verse. Like, I get that we're trying to make them as specific as possible, but it's very difficult because you could be a bottom who likes to eat, right? You could be a top that likes to, suck, whatever they may look like, and now it becomes all these other terms that come into play.
Right.
When again, it's just really being effective in your communication of the sexual experience altogether. I want monogamous sex, and because even with monogamy, still like threesomes is still monogamy, right? Like we're monogamous, but we have threesomes every once in a while.
Is that monogamous? People manipulate these terms to suit them. I don't think people just take the term as it is. I think we are in a society that right now we kind of glorize versatile people. Like, there's just like, you're not having verse sex and you're not having the best sex. I've heard this before. And I don't think that should be the thing that's out there. I think if you have good sex, you have good sex, right? And it just depends on what you like.
And I think you should validate it for yourself. I think for sure when you're younger, coming into a space that no one really teaches you, yes, you probably will learn from somebody else. I get that, right? And so you may have to explore some things before you land on what you like. But I think if you land on what you like, and that happens to be one side of the spectrum or in the middle or wherever, it's fine. Do your thing.
So what I'm finding is communication is key to this. And not run, but people have always said that maybe like talking up to sex is not sexy, or talking about sex is not sexy. So the nonverbal stuff is seen as sexy, but what we're saying right now is that verbal communication is the way to get to the other side.
Well, when you put it like that, that's real though, because I will say, if you ask me my sexual position off jump, I'm turned off. I don't want to be asked. It's just not even because you're asking me the question. The question doesn't bother me. Right. It's to your point. There's no nuance. I don't want to eliminate the subtlety and flirtatiousness and the subtlety and just that little nuance of, let's hang out, let's do things. And again, it's hard to read for sure because you can't clock.
But then, let's say you are vibing. You like, yo,
I get it.
What's good? It's a month later, you guys are about to lay down, and you're like, yo, what's going on? So
I feel like it's filler questions to ask, right? Let's really talk here. I feel like there's little ways in which you can kind of peep the vibe, even the way you flirt. Like, let's say, look for terms that would be indicative of the sexual experience. That's what I do myself. Let's say you say, I was outside all day, I'm glad to be inside, right? Let's say you just say something like that, right? And then I say, oh, okay, like, I'd be glad to be inside too. Yeah. And then you kind of know where I'm at with it. Yeah. Or like if you say something along the lines of like, like, I don't know, whatever. You can think about ways in which and then the person can kind of say, And I'm not saying, because again, I get it. Who wants to say, hey, are you a top or a bottom or a verse or a verse top or a verse top bottom or an oral top or an oral bottom, or who wants to do all that?
No one wants to like, check the box or like circle in what works for them. I think if you just say asking questions back and forth, it's at a game. It's not direct, and you're saying that's kind of fun.
I guess it depends on the person, right? But for me, I like the game of flirting. Like, I don't know why that's lost on people. I guess because we're both guys and we feel like we can skip the middleman. We can just get right to it, and that's cute and all. But like, I want some romance a little bit. Let's jaw jack for a little bit. Let's talk this thing. Jaw jack. That's
never heard of that. Never heard of that. Jaw jack.
Let's jaw jack. Let's shoot the shit, and I think it becomes this really, and I get it though. I don't want to waste their time, and that's the issue. Not issue, but that's the interesting part about being queer,
right?
Because you don't really feel like you come into the pot understanding the sexual dynamic. Where for a lot of guys, with cis het men, you feel like 9 out of 10, you know how you and your girl is gonna have sex.
Right.
You don't have to ask her if she's top, bottom, verse. You pretty much know how it's going to happen in most instances. But within the gay community, there are feminine tops. There's masculine bottoms. And so you can't really gauge behavior and say, but I think, again, even when it comes to the sexual position conversation, I want us to, when we're grooming people, and that's a terrible word to use, but when we're like meeting people and like exploring, sexual position can't be the first thing that we are pervasive about. It can't be the first thing that we are trying to inject into people. And we also can't perpetuate our standards of what position should be what based on size of your penis, based on the size of your butt, based on that stuff shouldn't matter in terms of you just defining for yourself who you are and who you want to be sexually. So what are your thoughts on people who police your behavior to then validate your sexual position?
To ask me this question is a bit strange because what I present outside the bedroom is what I present inside the bedroom. So if you're reading me in that way, if you're interested in me in that way, I don't think it's going to be a very crazy shift for you.
Okay.
However, if it's done on the other end, I can see how a person can feel kind of bamboozled in a way, but I'm an advocate for asking questions. If you know me, I ask questions. I'm always trying to get to the bottom of it. I'm always trying to understand things, probably a little too much, so I can kind of chill and kind of go with the flow a bit more. But I'm always planning for longevity. I'm never really planning for it in the moment per se. Like I'll get my rocks off sometimes, but my thing is I'm mainly trying to plan for longevity. So me understanding what you identify outside the bedroom and if that correlates to what you do inside, to me that's like, okay, this is accurate. Like my portrayal of him is correct, opposed to it being completely off. That shows me we're not really aligned in that way. I'm reading you wrong. Like maybe I'm not the person for you, because the person for you will be able to kind of understand those nuances about you that I'm not picking up on, and vice versa.
So what advice would you give to somebody who is trying to understand someone's sexual position and or understand their own?
I would say spend time with self, and I would say spend time learning and educating yourself and seeing how you fit within that. You don't necessarily need to subscribe to it. I get that that's not what we want to do, but I feel as though education is key. We should understand what things are. Like to this day, I don't understand fully what oral tops and oral bottoms are, because to me, I kind of have an idea of it, but then it's like, does it really make sense? Because I've attracted tops who like to suck, who like to do things. So am I saying that oral tops only eat?
I think oral tops are people who suck. I don't know, actually.
No, that's what I'm saying. But also that is considered, I thought that behavior was considered like side. Like there's a sexual orientation called side, of like people that don't like penetration. They like oral sex, or they like hand jobs and stuff like that. So to me, how I educate myself is just trying to have more conversations like this, educating myself when I'm by myself, and just keeping an open mind. I mean, that's the only thing you really can do. I mean,
I would say the same. I think keep an open mind. Don't judge yourself. Don't feel like you can't explore if that's your situation. Don't feel like you have to explore if that's not your situation. If you just do you,
right?
I'm a big proponent of silencing the noise. People will tell you to do everything under the sun. If you ask 5 people something, they'll give you 5 different directives. Sometimes you have to listen to that internal voice that says, what do I feel most comfortable doing? What do I want to do? What do I enjoy? When do I feel safe?
Yes.
And in terms of safety, I'm always say this: protect yourself, and whatever that looks like for you, protect yourself sexually. Condoms, PrEP, all the things. Just protect yourself, and have fun. Do your thing. I'm not mad at nobody doing anything.
I ain't mad at nobody doing anything.
But like, I don't think that sex should be this like thing. And if it's gonna be, then just I would recommend not doing it for my personal. Like, I don't want you to put yourself in a position to where it's given. Let me do this for this dude.
Right.
Because, like,
because if you go bring that energy to the bedroom,
it's just no fun.
You shouldn't be doing it, right?
It's just no fun. And I get that sometimes maybe you're not in the mood, which is different than the desire, right? Yeah. Maybe you may just be sleepy. Maybe you had a long day. You don't. I get those kind of things. Right. I'm talking about if you are legitimately interacting with sex in a comfortable way, but it still gives.
Right. And don't let people shame you based on what you like. Like, really stand on what you like. If you like this type of porn, if you like to do this type of activity, if you like this position, stand in that. Because oftentimes we can kind of like, criticize people for liking what they like, and then they end up changing themselves for you.
I've been guilty of that in my past for sure, though.
Really?
I've had moments like that. Yeah, I've had moments like that where I felt like people were, I don't want to say less than, but I did judge people who did things that were outside of the rubric that I was given.
No, and me too.
I think most of us have, because most of us were given how you have sex. You know what I'm saying? Whether that was somebody who was versed, somebody who was strict in their position, so it made you strict in yours.
Right.
And so it becomes this really tug and pull of like they're being deviant and they're outside of what you should do sexually, and I'm doing what I should do sexually, so they're wrong and I'm not.
Right. But my thing is, if you stand in what you like,
Facts.
How you know later I won't come around to it? I think people want that instant gratification. It was like, I want to do a group, and it's like, whoa, we haven't even got us together. You want to do a group. However, if we got us together and you sitting in it and this is adamant about what you want, okay, now it's time to explore that, you know? But I think we need levels. And I don't think you can always just get everything off the bat. And just, like what you like and know what you don't like.
Like what you like. Don't judge yourself or judge anybody else. Keep creating space. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
I'm like next week. Like I'm going to be here.